Welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast.
There's always that moment where Satya looks at me and I'm like, yeah, it's still my job to start talking
I
first.
mean, I can roll us in if you want, but it's
Roll us in, bring us in. Come on, let's do it.
Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Look Good, Move Well podcast.
We already did the intro, so this is like a different type of like, hey, everyone, what's going on? Let's bring some energy.
Okay. Redo. Okay, this is like the skill set that nobody tells you about when you're trying to become a podcaster, is figuring out how to get your like intro game on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a skill set that nobody talks about generally with media.
Yeah.
We're actors and we have no acting training, no formal acting training. I was like, okay, what is the skill I want to invest in myself? And I'm like, I need to get some like acting training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Train in front of the camera.
Right. Or voice coaching. I'm highly interested in changing cadence, understanding tone, all of that to just optimize how people connect with the information that we might have to share.
Yeah.
Right. There's
Yeah.
so many ways to like, improve that connection with you all. And anything that might seem like, oh, you seem good in front of the camera, that's just because like I've done it for so long and I've just gotten reps in. I have no idea what I'm doing in front of the camera at all. Okay. Yeah. This is simply just a big trial and error process.
Yeah. No, you're excellent on camera.
I mean, but you put me on any in any environment where there's like actors or people that have formal training on like how to present themselves, I would look very, very uncomfortable and awkward, and they wouldn't cast me. So I need to go get cast on something for real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyhow, what's a skill that you're trying to improve upon right now that you're investing in yourself? Speaking of skills and developing yourself for the purpose of either greater life fulfillment or being better at your job.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm always doing a lot to be better at my job.
This is not an interview. You're not here to impress me. I know you're killing it.
I'm sharing for the people who
Good,
don't necessarily know how much I do for my job. But one thing I've been super into lately is, as you know, conversion rate optimization, baby. Just squeezing out every ounce you can out of those landing pages and email sequences, click-through rates, and I'm also really into advertising, and I'm studying up on all the best ads of history, and I'm subscribed to all these like ad nerds newsletters, and I'm loving all that.
Spoken like a true marketer.
Yeah,
I love it.
True marketing nerd. And then in my spare time, I put together fancy little presentations and PDFs and creative retrospectives and deep dives and analysis, and I share it with my team, and it's so satisfying.
That's rad.
This is the real me coming through right now.
Sweet.
Okay, yeah. Do you have a skill you're working on?
No, I don't. I don't have any skills.
No skills.
No skills. Nothing I'm working on.
Okay, other than being better in front of the camera.
No, I'm not even formally working on that.
No.
I have nothing that I'm actively trying to get better at. I am learning a lot of, I'm taking in a lot of knowledge on a few different topics, but in terms of like, is this an actionable skill that I can take out and utilize and leverage in the world? Nothing right now. I'm it's very clear to me that that's something that I want to create like a singular area of focus, and I don't want to just jump right into the first thing, but as I already mentioned, the thought of doing some work on my writing skills, but maybe voice, maybe on camera, those would be areas that I would like to engage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
Because I'm always doing the fitness thing.
Yeah.
I might.
It's constant.
That's a constant thing. Yeah. Anyhow, so here we are. We're back after summer break, and the podcast kept rolling on because we recorded a lot of podcasts, several months ago to get you content all throughout the summer. But now we're back making new podcasts. It's August, and we're going to do a little reflection on the summer experience that I had training in commercial gyms for the most part for the better part of a month.
Yes.
Meaning I was bouncing around the East Coast and was in gyms, a lot of different types of gyms, but making observations of who was there, how people were training, seeing a wide variety of different skill levels, engaged in their fitness, and then thinking, wow, that is amazing. And wow, there's such an opportunity to make better use of your time in this way. I definitely am very thankful that I had time to get into different environments, to train with other people, and to engage with, fitness people.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was great. Sometimes it was highly distracting. The guy up in Rangeley who wanted to tell me about, he wanted to just talk our ear off for I'm like, we got 30 minutes to do a workout. You want to talk for 20 of them? No way. Get out of here. So yeah, that's what we're just going to discuss today. And I know I shared a lot of things with you along the way. Is there anything that stood out to you as why this would be, worth investigating on the podcast?
Yes, for sure. So for people who aren't familiar, we have almost a unique situation or an uncommon situation that we typically train in here day to day. If you're not familiar with the functional bodybuilding headquarters, it's now a closed gym. We used to have it open to public membership where people could work with a coach here on staff and come in and train here. We do still have a couple clients who come in and train, but for the most part, since the pandemic, that has been shut down, and it's basically been our private gym and content studio. So when we train here, we're in a bubble, and we typically don't train with lots of different types of people. We do sometimes have friends in on Saturday or whatever, but it's typically just a small crew, and we don't have to fight over equipment. We have everything we need. And so it's a bit of a sterile environment. And I was just curious, and I was picking your brain along the way, especially because I also traveled and was training at a YMCA that I don't typically train in. And it just really made an impact on me in terms of reconnecting with just your average gym goer in America. What's going on? And how do you see that from the lens of functional bodybuilding in terms of how people could train more effectively, make better use of the equipment that's available to them, given the constraints typically at a more conventional gym with more people around and tighter equipment and things like that. And knowing that people were picking your brain, it's like when people see you training the way you train, what do they want to know?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest, there's probably three things that really stood out to me the most. And I think I'll start by saying, I'm going to make some generalizations about the people I saw training in these different environments. Most of my generalizations are going to be sort of looking at the commercial gym setting. And what I mean by that is okay, here's a gym that has a lot of machines, some free weights, combination of both, a lot of cardio equipment. It's generally an open gym format, so these are not organized group classes. There is personal training happening on the floor of varying levels of, skill and precision and quality. But a lot of people that just come in, they scan their barcode on their little key fob thing. They walk into the gym. They're left to their own devices. They do their thing, and then they leave. They could be there a long time. They could be there a short time. And they sort of have their pick of however they want to engage in fitness. And there's enough variety in terms of equipment that they could be doing a functional workout. They could be doing a bodybuilding workout. They could be doing a cardio thing. They could be doing a mixture. And that is, by and large, there are more of those types of gyms out there in the world than there are, boutique gyms or gyms that have a very clear, like, this is the style that you train here in. And so that is the bulk of who's moving out in the world in a gym environment.
Yeah.
So what I generally saw was probably number one, what appeared to be lack of a plan for people. So I sort of go in and generally follow, like, a routine, but there's no plan behind that. There's no progression behind it. And there's certainly no, it's not necessarily thoughtful of, like, how did Monday and impact Tuesday, impact Wednesday, impact Friday, or whatever your frequency of coming was.
Mm-hmm.
And now, again, I had to make some assumptions, but these are some of the things that I saw. Was like, I would go to a particular gym and I would see the same person many days in a row, which was great. And the first observation is I'm seeing similar faces. So people are being consistent in here.
Yeah.
However, I'm watching their training over the course of 2 to 3 weeks, because we were at the same gym for 2 to 3 weeks, and there's no rhyme or reason how they're moving from exercise to exercise, body part to body part. It's sort of, I got the sense of, like, I'm just going by feel each day. There were also individuals that had the look of, like, not really they didn't really know where to be looking. They were kind of like looking at other people most of the time that they were in there, not really focused on what they were doing in front of them. So it would be like they're doing an exercise and then they'd finish and then they're, like, looking around to see, like, what's available in terms of equipment, or, oh, that person's doing that thing, I'm going to go do that thing. And that, again, just screams to me like I have no plan, I have no clear focus. In contrast to the few people that I saw that clearly had plans, there was somebody who was, those individuals often were laser focused. They had music on and they were tuning out the world. They were following what looked, the appearance of, like, oh, this person's building sets, they're doing progressive like, I can see them adding weight thoughtfully to the bar, and they're picking, that person generally was picking 1 or 2 movements in the gym that were their focus for that day, and they were getting after it. Mm-hmm. So the female who was in the gym doing Smith machine squats, she did like 10 hard sets on this Smith machine, and, like, she was focused on getting good form, hitting her depth, like loading up weights, like pushing it hard. Like, I was like, okay, I don't know what the program is, but this is, like, squats are a focus. Today's the squat day. She's getting after the squats, and it's clear, like, she knows she had a purpose coming in here. So that was, like, the number one observation that was striking, and also not super, like, surprising, because I used to be that person. I mean, that was the first 2 to 3 years, maybe 1 to 2 years I was in gyms as a teenager, was just sort of like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to kind of do everything, and, oh, that guy looks strong, I'm going to do what he's doing, and, just kind of like following around. Mm-hmm. The second thing was it was like it's a combination between, like, technique, form, range of motion, and just, like, generally a general misunderstanding of like how movement's supposed to really happen.
Yes.
Like a foundation of good movement.
Yeah.
And this also not super surprising, because where movement gets taught so well is in the boutique gyms, in the focused, this is how we train. Like, you go to a gym where this is the style of what they do. Like, there'll be somebody that teaches it, or there'll be enough people modeling how to do it well that the new people come in and then they do it they try and emulate it. At least they try and get close to it. I can go into a CrossFit gym, and is everyone doing perfect thrusters? No, like there's some bad form, but people know what a thruster's supposed to look like. They squat to full depth. They try and lock it out overhead. Like, are they always having their elbows in the optimal position? Like, are their squat mechanics perfect? Like, no, but it's not a question of like they're doing a thruster or they're not, they're kind of hitting the major points there.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the benefits of like a community like CrossFit gyms worldwide, is that like there's a scope of movements that they're going to try and teach or use. There's enough people modeling good behavior. It's part of the culture to do the movements right. There's a technique or a range of motion that's sort of discussed as a standard. In this commercial setting, gym setting, there's not like a kind of a universal, like there's just so much variety. There's so many things in there, and it's sort of like just bring what you got into here and do it. And then that doesn't create like a good model for people to follow who are uninformed, who are not seeking out the education, who aren't watching YouTube videos on how to do it right. Mm-hmm. And this is even the case for the people who have been there the longest. Somebody who's been in a CrossFit gym for a long time, they have heard it enough and they've had it ingrained into their thinking, like this is how you move, this is what you do, and over time, since they've repeated these behaviors, their technique tends to improve over time. And so, but here I'm seeing somebody who is probably been training 20 years or so, or maybe more, and they're doing strict press, barbell military press, with a weight that's probably not appropriate for them, but forget the weight at the moment. Their technique and what they're deeming a press is like literally like resting the bar on their forehead and then kind of pressing it to a few inches above their head and then back to their forehead with their back super arched. And like, they're just sort of doing this like very, very weird makeshift press. And I'm looking at this guy working out, and he's got muscle. Like, he's clearly been doing this a long time. Like, this is not his first week, his first month, or his first year. But there's just a lack of movement foundation. And that was even true for people working on machines. It's like working on machines, and the focus just becomes on, can I, like, there's again, I don't know how else to say this. It's not like a foundation of like, this is how the movement's supposed to start and look like at its foundation. You need to do a full range of motion. This is how you do the movement correctly and safely. So anyhow, that was the second thing. So it's like lack of a clear direction and program, and any type of repeatable, progression to what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Number two, movements. There's not like a standard of good movement and good range of motion, foundation of safety. Like, motor control is very iffy out there. And then I think the last thing, which kind of ties into the second, which is, what are people like, there's a lot of, it seems like there's for a certain group, there's a lot of ego in what they're doing with their training. And then this other group who's like, I'm absolutely not going to be, I'm detached from like pushing myself hard and like using my ego at all.
I'm just here.
Which the person that's really like, I'm trying to lift the next pin down on the weight machine. They're chasing, adding more plates, going up the dumbbell rack, like hitting the bigger weights with, it's like kind of misplaced effort, because they're doing it in, look, even if you do half range of motion with super heavy weights, you're going to get a muscle stimulus. Like you can build muscle. However, it's just sort of like you get a lot more bang for your buck if you would just dial it back and, do things with better range of motion, better control, and then progress on top of a good foundation. So this person that missed this second thing, which is like they didn't develop good movement foundations, and then are ego lifting like crazy over here, and it's like now you're compounding on one problem with another problem. Bad movement with now thinking that the path to success is just to max out on everything that you can, on top of poor mechanics. Then there's the person who's doing none of that. Like they're just like, I'm so detached from ego. I'm like, I'm just here to like, lifting heavy is bad for me. Mm-hmm. It's the person who I saw who was just like, okay, I did my 10 reps with like the 10-pound dumbbells. Cool, check the box. Like I'm going to move on to the next thing. And so there's that group that's getting zero intensity. Then there's, the group that's going too heavy. They're getting a lot of intensity, but on top of a really bad foundation, on top of no plan, which goes nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think both of those people in that last category are suffering. You're either in the gym for an hour, not getting a good stimulus, which I applaud you for being there, and you're clearly there, like consistently, like you want to do it, but not putting in the intensity. Or the person who's going super hard, but it's like, driving really fast with the e-brake on. It's like, why are you doing that? Like just take the e-brake off, and then you can just take your foot off the gas a little bit and you'll get there even faster. Right. Imagine that. And your car won't smell like it's, got a burnt brake pad. So those were kind of like the three biggest, faults or challenges or things that I was like, God, I wish I could just like, we could take all these individuals who have swiped their key card 3 to 6 times in a week and have taken the time out of their schedule to drive to the gym, to be there for an hour and then go home. Like they're putting in a lot of energy.
Yes.
And that deserves to get maximal return.
Yeah.
Like you deserve to get the most out of that time that you're there. And it's, there's levels to that, but if we can check these 3 boxes and make some changes, like you can absolutely see exponential improvements and growth and return on your investment of time and energy and effort in the gym.
Yeah. Well, the marketer in me is really humming along on this one because I was just reflecting on how people say just go to the gym, and how it's like, okay, I know I want to get fit. I got to go to the gym. And then you start going to the gym and there's a whole level of intimidation to overcome, even to feel comfortable in that space, which if you haven't checked out our episode on gym intimidation, it's all about that. But then it's like, ... get fit. And it's like, what the heck comes in between those ...
Yeah.
And, when I was at the YMCA, I was moving around the gym. I was following my plan. I was looking at the available equipment and making adaptations on the fly because I understood what the intent of the exercise I wanted to do was.
Right.
Oh, there's no band here. Great. I'll do this instead. There's no dumbbell weight at that weight. I'll move up or move down. And that's a whole skill set that, in addition to being aware of what form is and how to move well and how to follow a program. So there's a lot in there to unpack to, like hand someone this bucket of knowledge that can really help them make the most of that time.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering how you would prioritize, like, what's step one? Okay, I'm at the gym.
I already got this in my, and it's how I laid it out.
Yeah.
Number one is a plan, a program to follow, something to follow. You can make that on your own. You can download free ones. You can pay for a program. You can do all of those things. But going into the gym with a plan is the first thing that everybody should have. Whether you sign up to work with a personal trainer to help you develop that plan or you bring in your own, it's so important. And I hear this often. It's like, man, it was hard to like follow the plan. Like I didn't understand all the things. It was complicated, or it's like, yes, it's complicated. It's complicated to learn anything that's new. If you don't stick with it to overcome that obstacle of learning the new thing, then here's the alternative. You continue to go to the gym with no plan, no program, nothing to follow, and you waste a tremendous amount of time. That's the thing. You're trading time. When you're in the gym with no plan, that means you're putting effort towards something each time that you're there that does not build upon the next session, and there's no compounding. So it's like it's putting money into your savings account versus putting it into a investment account. The investment account grows at 10% per year, and your savings account grows at like 0.4% a year. Which do you want to do? Like, oh, but investment's complicated. It's like, you're right, it's complicated. Like, hire someone to teach you how to do it, or spend a month watching YouTube videos on how to do it better, and guess what? You overcame the difficulty of learning it, and now you have the next 50 years of your life to compound interest and build massive wealth. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the plan portion, and having a program to follow. A plan provides you with a step-by-step, okay, I follow this, then I follow this, then I follow this. And even if the plan is somewhat confusing or it's difficult to do it perfectly, that's not the point. You don't do it perfectly. You just get the plan and you go in and you do the best that you can with that on day 1. Then you do the best you can on day 2. Then you do the best you can on day 3. By the time you get to day 10 and you're doing the same things you did on day 1 for the second time, you're going to do better than day 1 because you learned something along the way. You got in reps. So prioritizing having a plan, absolutely the first and foremost thing that you have to do. And I'm saying that before you learn how to move well. Go in and do the crappy movement or the suboptimal technique or the partial range of motion. I don't care. But at least follow something that guides you from step to step. Because even if it's just, and this is like, you're in the gym for an hour and you're kind of playing the look around what other people are doing. Let me go try this machine. Let me go try this. That means for the 60 minutes that you're there, maybe 30 minutes of it is you just looking around. So you really got a 50% efficiency workout. You go in with a plan. You go in with like, okay, this is your warm up. Okay, this is your next strength set. This is your next strength set. This is your conditioner. This is what you got to do. Boom. Then you don't ever have to look around. You save all that time and it all goes towards doing something. So it's the easiest way to elevate what you're doing. Now, for somebody who's listening, who's not like just a newbie beginner, who's more advanced, who's maybe an intermediate trainee, and you're still not training on a plan. You like to go in and cherry pick and do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You still are falling victim to the same thing. You're spending 2 hours in the gym, piecing together a bunch of different stuff. The return on that piecing together stuff is maybe as good, maybe not as good as if you just followed a strict plan that was 60 minutes of your time. The efficacy and the efficiency of your program is the return you get from the time that you put in. So if you're cherry picking and you're doing this mix mash of all these different programs and you're getting, Y result, but you're doing it in 2 hours each day because it takes time to figure out how to like mix it all together, versus you doing a 60-minute plan that is guided and it tells you exactly what to do and you get the same Y result, but it only took you 60 minutes. You're actually 50% more efficient than, or 100% more efficient than the person who's doing so this is like, it could be the person that has no idea what to do or the person who has too much knowledge and they're just following too many things. And I myself I fall into that category from time to time too. And I'm just like, I'm just doing too many things. It's like, I'd be better off if I just stuck to the plan and did it consistently. So priority number 1. Then priority number 2, and this actually fixes number 3. Priority number 2 is basically remove, pretend like you're a beginner again, or you are a beginner, and commit to learning at least one of the movements in your program each week, how to do it perfectly. And perfectly is follow the demonstration video, follow the coaching cues that are present there, do an investigation on YouTube of like proper mechanics, watch one of our, more in-depth breakdown videos or, movement demonstration videos with talking points and coaching cues to be like, I'm going to do this exercise better than I've ever done it. So the guy who was doing the heavy strict presses with partial range of motion, it would be like, for just this one exercise this week and for the next 3 to 4 weeks, like you're going to go down to the bare, the limited weight, the empty bar or the very light dumbbells. And you're going to prioritize moving with a full range of motion with control at every position in this exercise. And for 3 to 4 weeks, you're not going to be able to lift anything that feels really heavy because you're just going to have to focus on technique. But by taking those 4 weeks to reestablish a movement foundation that is full range of motion and better, like from a joint safety, joint health perspective, you're getting more work done because you're actually moving the barbell or the dumbbell through your body's, your joints, accessible range of motion. Mm-hmm. In this case, that barbell has to come down to your shoulder. It has to go all the way over your head until you can lock out your arms. That's what counts. That's how we establish what a rep that counts is. Then after 3 to 4 weeks, you've reset a new movement baseline, and you can start to progress your weights and make them harder. For somebody who's never done movement before, who's scared to push their intensity, they were the person that's like kind of just checking the box. Oftentimes that comes from not feeling confident that like you're doing the movement well. So when you learn how to do a movement well and you commit to focusing on good range of motion or good mechanics, you get that foundation, then you're like, okay, well, I know I'm doing it well, I'm safe, and now I can start to fix, the third effort category that I was missing in. And I don't think it needs to be any more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Get a plan, pick one movement per week, maybe 2, that you are going to like almost be like, you're going to commit to being a student, and you're going to be almost, fanatical about trying to do it really, really well. And it might look silly to other people because you're not doing it with any weight. You're just really refining technique. And once those 2 things are established, then the sky becomes the limit in terms of how much you can progress. But from there, the third category of like, I'm ego lifting. Well, then that becomes, you can get back to ego lifting, but now you have this new foundation that is like, I can only ego lift on top of good movement. Like if the second I'm not doing the movement right anymore, then I shouldn't be lifting, that much weight. And it was like so clear to me that if I could just like, have the power to go in and just like tap someone on the shoulder and be like, I now, confer the wisdom to you. And it's like, boom. Oh, I have a plan. It's on my phone. Tells me what to do. And I'm going to do my strict presses like I'm watching on this demo video. I'm going to do it all the way. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Then that whole, all those people I saw would be like, oh, that's what you're doing. That's exactly that's why everybody who wanted to come and talk to me, or everybody who, the handful of people that came up and complimented me on like, hey man, you're like really jacked. Like you're obviously doing something right. Like those are the reasons right there, and it doesn't need to get more complicated than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd love to give people a couple resources that we provide if they're looking for more support with a plan or for movement demonstrations. We have a ton of those. If you look up the Functional Bodybuilding YouTube channel, we have over 1,000 demo videos freely available there. If you search for the coaches breakdowns, there's probably also a playlist of those. That's a great thing to go and look up to get more tips for setting up movements.
Yep.
And we also provide those in our training platform. If you are in the Persist training program, those are in the video library. And if you're in Persist, you get a plan, and you also get to interact with a coach and upload form videos for form feedback.
Yeah. And I think actually making some of those form review videos even public for people would be really valuable. We could have a playlist on functional bodybuilding where people could actually see those. And, the benefit to being a Persist member is that when those videos and those movements come up, you get to film yourself, submit video, and get form review tips from our coaches who are like, hey, I'm seeing this is what you're doing. But just the information, is we can make available. And again, like I see that being such a strong, those two levers to pull. Yeah. Just really just like, again, like the compounding of wealth totally. Analogy, just it means like it's so applicable here. 'Cause in the gym, it's like if I could go back to the first day I went to the gym, and now like probably for the last, I don't know, almost decade, I can confidently say that like I've approached every training session in the gym with this mentality, where I've had a pretty clear idea of what I was doing when I went to the gym. I wasn't just like, I'd say whatever, 49 times out of 50 in the gym. I know what I'm doing before I get there, and I know what qualifies as good movement, and then I give an adequate amount of intensity for that movement. And so for the last 10 years, I've had by and large, the most, effective workouts and progress and compounding fitness of any time in my life. Last 12 years. Yeah. Prior to that, I would say I spent maybe that whole decade, like not really having a plan, at times not knowing what good movement was. Like, and I mean, I kind of like, I'm like, those were my prime years as like a teenager and in my early 20s when I was set up for the most success from like a physiological standpoint. Like I blew it in a way. I didn't blow it. Like I learned a lot, and this is my journey, and I have no regrets about it. But I'm like, man, if I could just change that, imagine that. And there's no time or day or age where it's the wrong time to start doing it the right way. And no, the program and moving like this is not magic. It's not like, oh, I started this program and I'm moving better now, and after a month, like I've crushed all my goals. But all the work you put in for that month, and then the next month, and it's like now it starts to really compound. Yes, you're not just like, putting money into a very, very low yield savings account that like depletes every month, and you get your little interest payout, and it's like 47 cents this month. And you're like, the hell am I going to do with 47 cents? Like I can't even buy a gumball anymore, Okay.
Yes, for sure.
So that's good. And I want to also I'll finish by saying gyms are wonderful places, even when there are a lot of individuals in those gyms that are not getting the maximal return out of their time in there. I also love that people are creating that routine in their life to get into a place where they're surrounded by people moving. Yeah. It was inspiring to just be around people all working out.
Totally.
It's like
was.
I felt at home when I would just step into that little Gold's Gym in the middle of, suburbs of Boston, and just be like, okay, everyone's here just trying to get after it. Yeah. And if you feel like, somebody that's in that category, and, you could help help guide them towards a plan and some better movement, then, here's your nudge to go and help them. But the gym community and all the gyms out there, it's an awesome place to see people still, getting after it, even if they're not doing it perfectly.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll see you guys on the next episode, and shoot us your questions and your stories of your Globo gym encounters, commercial gym encounters, good, bad, and ugly that you've seen there. We'd love to hear them.
Yeah, and also tell us like what name you assigned in your head to that person that you're going to tell us about.
Totally. All right. See you guys.
We'll see you next time.